Hello, welcome to this video tutorial on how to create a combination cut and fold pattern. Before we get started marking your book, you want to make sure you have all of your materials in one place. You'll want to have a good, accurate ruler that's also got a little bit of an edge to it so you can tuck it into your book easily. You'll want to have your book. Make sure that it is free of any structural damage, that the spine is intact, so when you go to sit it up at the end, it'll hold the artwork nicely. I have my book folding rock. You'll need something that is heavy and flat so it will put pressure on the pages as you're folding. This is a candle holder that I have repurposed into my book folding rock. You'll need to have a sharpened pencil, a pair of scissors that have a fine edge to them or a fine tip. These I like because they're pretty narrow and I can make those fine cuts very easily. And last, we have our pattern. Once you have everything that you need, you're ready to start marking your pattern. Now we are ready to work on our combination cut and fold pattern. So the first thing we'll need to do is to start marking our pages. So you'll open up the cover of your book and move past the title page, the end page. This is where I'm using my rock to weigh my pages down. I've gone ahead and put my ruler in about 20 pages or so into the book. And now we're ready to start marking our pattern. So with this type of pattern, every page has cuts and or folds on them. Because it is pretty detailed with Leia's face, most of the pages will have cuts and folds. But to start with a pattern like this, to start reading it, you'll see the page number is page 1. That's the first page of the book, regardless of the page number that's written on the page. Then we have our first measurement and then our last measurement. And you can see that the first 15 pages, it says no cuts, it's just folds. And I'll show you how to do that when we go back and mark, when we start to fold the pages. When you move down a little further in the pattern, you see that we have 4 measurements now. So we'll again start from the smallest measurement, moving to the largest measurement, this one being the first, this one being the last, and so on and so forth as we go through the pattern. So it says our first marking point here is 7.2 and 7.8. So I'm going to come to my book. I'm going to find where my 7.2 is from my ruler and just make a small little mark. I'm not sure if you can see that well or not, at the 7.2. And another mark at 7.8. And this is where having a printed paper copy comes in handy, because now I'm just going to scratch out that I've done those cuts. And we're ready to move on to the next page. So the next page is 6.8 and 8.2. And we move on to the next page. I think you might hear my stomach growling in the background. I do apologize. You'll also hear my dogs as they're walking around and wondering who I'm talking to for this video. Usually I like to have either a podcast or an audiobook or a movie or TV show playing in the background while I work. This part of the process is probably the most tedious because it's the one you have to be the most precise and accurate with. If you mess up while marking your book, that throws off your whole pattern. So it's very important to take your time and make sure your measurements are accurate and they are precise. Some people like to go ahead and mark one page and fold it at the same time, but I like to go ahead and get all of the marking out of the way and then come back and cut and fold at a different time. And you continue in this pattern until you are finished marking your entire pattern in your book. Occasionally, when working on a detailed pattern, you may come across some of the markings that are double numbered. See, this has 7-8 and 7-8. This is not a mistake. This is important for the overall pattern. So let me show you how to do that. So you continue marking as you normally do, with our first measurement being 5, then 6-9, 7-2, 7-7. Now 7-8 is the one that is doubled. So we mark the first line for 7-8. But because I'm not going to go ahead and fold this page, I'm going to make myself a little note so that I don't forget it when I'm coming back and working. I just put a little dot above the 7-8 measurement line, and that lets me know that I need to come back and treat this one a little bit differently. And then I continue. My next mark is 7-9, then 8-1, and 8-9, and 12-2. Now, when I go back to mark, what we're going to do with this particular piece is we're going to actually cut on either side of the mark line. So when we come back to cut and fold, I'll show you what it looks like a little differently. Now that you have finished marking your book, it's time to start cutting and folding. You'll need first a template that you can use for how shallow or deep you want your cuts to go. I usually go about 1 centimeter from the edge of the book. So this is one that I've used pretty frequently with a lot of different books, and so it's kind of a little worse for wear, but it still works fine for me. So you'll just need to take a piece of cardstock and measure from the spine of the book to the edge of the page how deep you want it to go. Again, some of the patterns I make, I like to go a little bit deeper. It causes a little bit more shadow to go into the book. And in some books, I like it to be just about 1 centimeter in depth. But that's definitely up to your personal preference. So after you have your cardstock, you'll need your scissors and my book rock. So I've already started a little bit on this book, and you can kind of see how the artwork is progressing. That's the really cool thing about this type of artwork, is as you work through it, you start to see the pattern come to life. It gets really exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and continue working on my book and show you how to do the combination cut and fold. So you see how the book kind of doesn't want to lay flat? That's where my rock comes into place. So I take my rock and just kind of set it on top of the pages, which keeps the book open and lets me work on this edge, which is where I have done my marks. So now I'm ready to continue working on my cut and fold. Now with a cut and fold, the first measurement mark and the last measurement mark are always going to be 90-degree right angles. I'll show you what I mean. So taking the corner of your page, fold it in towards your measurement mark and make a 90-degree fold. Just make this at 90 degrees there. And you do the same for the last measurement mark. So we start off with our first 2 measurement marks folded. Now take your template, line it up with your page, and using your scissors, you're going to cut on each of your measurement marks. I just cut up to where my template is. And make sure that you do get a really good cut, a sharp cut on each of your measurement marks. From there, we start to fold every other tab. So once you've made your cuts, you see how you have these little tabs of paper here. Starting with the first tab after your first measurement mark here, starting with this first tab, you fold it in towards the spine and you continue alternating every other one. And that's it. That's how you create a cut and fold pattern. So when cutting your double measurement mark lines, we remember that we've put our mark above our measurement point. We continue to do what we've always done and start off with our 90-degree fold and end with our 90-degree fold. Then taking our template, we go through and continue to cut like we always do on our measurement mark lines. Now when we get to the one that we've marked, what I always like to say is it's almost like you're cutting to the left and to the right of the measurement mark line. You wind up getting a teeny tiny little sliver of paper that it really doesn't seem like it matters in the grand scheme of things, but it does for the overall pattern. So here I'm going to cut to the right of the measurement line and to the left. I'm not sure if you can see very well or not that this tiny little piece right here, it's very tiny. Now, if you struggle doing that with your own scissors, the scissors you've been using, if you have a pair of smaller scissors, like embroidery scissors, then those would work just as well. The scissors I'm using have a really nice sharp point to them, so I'm able to do that fine detail. So after you finish cutting, we go back and fold as usual, starting with our first flap, leave the second one down, and alternating. Now when we get to our little double cut, we leave it down and fold the one next to it. You have to be a little more careful with this one. Fold it a little more gently, but you can see here that teeny tiny little piece. And your pattern is completed. Now, sometimes it happens to the best of us, this little piece of paper tears off. If that happens, it is perfectly fine. Usually this little, usually a double cut signifies the start of some fine details like the eyelashes of my Princess Leia book. So if one is missing, it really won't make that big of a deal. But this is how we can get some of these really detailed patterns in some of our smaller books. Once you are finished cutting and folding your pattern, your design is complete. You can go back and add color to the edges if you like, but that's not necessary. If you like this video, please subscribe and you'll be notified when I have more videos come out. And you can also follow my Etsy shop, Dog Eared Creations, and see where you can purchase some of the patterns that you see in my videos. Thank you for watching.